Miriam, you can hit go live on your
What do I?
channel.
Okay, now
Facebook
it says
Live.
it actually is live now.
Okay, well, Dustin will check it after you
Okay.
go. All right, so we're all
Mine
live.
says waiting to go live.
You are, I think you are live. I got a notification that you are live. So here we are. Hi, everybody. We can
Hi,
wait for,
everyone.
yeah, say hi. So we'll wait for folks to file in. I have my comments up. I'm going to go to, it's easier for me to see it on my channel. So. Oops, we have some feedback somewhere.
Yeah, no, it was because my my video started and I thought I had the audio off and it didn't.
Okay. All
So
right. We're good. All right. We're good. We're good. Okay. You guys are good. So we are good. We are streaming live. Hello, everybody. I have two people in my chat, but they haven't shown themselves. So whoever's there, shout out. Thank you for joining us. Putting on a broadcast like this, the technical piece is a little tricky and coordinating all that, but we've been having a little bit of fun, at least keeping our sense of humor. So we are here to start a series. Our plan is to do a series of conversations over time regarding the United States Pluto return and maybe some other things that will be coming in and integrating with that in terms of planetary energies over the next few years. And Miriam here, Miriam, the fugitive umbrellas she's got above her head there. She is my teacher, and so thank you so much, Miriam, for being here. I can't tell you guys how much I've learned from her. She's awesome, unbelievably awesome. But anyway, when we when we discuss things and I'm learning things, she has a really creative way of getting me to think about things outside the box. And so we've talked about this upcoming transit, and very interesting conversations come up. And then when we look at what has gone on and what is going on in society, it's just striking at how it matches the astrology so closely. So we want to talk about that. And then Tracy here at TR's Tarot Talk, and you guys have seen I've done collaborations with her. She is a psychic medium and has her own channel. And when I talk to my friends that are in the business, whether it's psychically or astrologically, there are common threads, like I was talking to Tracy not long ago, and she was like, I don't really know what's going on, but I feel some things. And she sort of threw out some intuitive, feelings and messages and things that she had got that really mirrored some of the things that Miriam and I had looked at in regarding this Pluto return. So that's what we're going to talk about. And Miriam, I'll hit the astrology, and Tracy will weigh in, intuitively. And I think we can have a really interesting conversation here. What's cool about this is that, we come from practical backgrounds and we also have spiritual gifts. And being able to bring those together and put this type of content out in a logical way is something that I know that I really want to do, and I know that these ladies want to do. So hopefully we can, break this down. I have a business background in healthcare for 30 years, and I'm an astrologer, and it really it matches up. So I want to go ahead and, my channel, Jovi Star Astrology, and, you can find me there, and we'll do some creds too at the end, specific things. But why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourself? Tracy, why don't you just sort of, introduce yourself and to everybody out there?
So hi, everybody. My name's Tracy. Everybody calls me TR. So I'm over here at TR's Tarot Talk 1111. And I've the funny thing is I was getting downloads about this information a while ago. And I had brought it up to Julene. And I told her, I said, there's something going on the 2nd of February, but I don't know what it is and I don't understand it. And she educated me real quick on what February 2nd, was all about. And so I was excited to do this because I kind of feel like it is part of what my spirit guides have been bringing me about this. And so, yeah, I'm excited to be here. I can't wait to see where we go with this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Miriam.
Okay, so I'm Miriam, and I blog over at Fugitive Umbrellas, and I've been doing astrology for about 21 years now, and professionally for about 5. And I write, I do a lot of readings, and I teach as well. But during the day, I'm an attorney, so I spend a lot of time focused on the here and now and problem solving. And Julian, as part of the work that we've been doing, we have been talking about this Pluto return. And frankly, I'm not surprised that you've been getting these downloads. One of the things that the astrology has shown us is that we're having this Pluto return, but we're also having a Neptune opposition, which, to explain it kind of broadly, is channeling and awakening this psychic sense. And especially people who are very psychically attuned, they would be receiving a lot of messages about the state of the country, that this would be something that their particular antennas would all be picking up. So finding out like what exactly is going to happen on February 2nd, I would be very shocked if psychically sensitive people weren't actually picking up on the tremors, because this is not just a Pluto return, but it's a Neptune opposition. And psychics, mediums, tarot card readers, people who just have that sort of sixth sense, I think that even if they don't want to feel that, even if they specifically are like, oh, I actually don't want to know what's going on, it's still going to come up in their dreams. It's still going to come up in synchronicity. That is just something that you can't ignore. So, Tracy, glad that you can accept this. Yeah.
Oh, it took me years, darling, let me tell you. So, my viewers know that I was raised in a very, very Christian home. And it was very difficult for me to come to terms with my gifts as a young child. And even as an adult, as a young adult, it took me probably, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago is when I started stepping into my gifts and really embracing them and saying, I don't care what other people think. I don't care how they judge me. This is who I am. I know that I have a mission. It's what I'm supposed to be doing. And I stepped into that mission about 4 years ago solidly over here on YouTube. And I do channel. I mean, it's part of my gifts that just recently came online in the last 3 years, where I actually do automatic writing and channel in messages, and usually do it on the new moon and full moon each month on my channel. And I actually I get visions and downloads of like sacred geometry and quantum physics and astrology. I always get a hold of Julene. I'm like, Julene, I hear that this is happening with this planet, and what does it mean? And she's like, oh my God, you're totally right. It's exactly what's going on. And so like it comes through me, but it's not really something I understand. It's something I aspire to learn. I've been trying to learn the basics. I don't even know what the houses are, It took me a year to memorize the zodiacs in order.
Well, and it's cool because, we can come together and work together. And I kind of find that, it's not coincidental, but that it's synchronistic. That's what fascinated me about the conversations that I have with the people that I've networked with and how similar they are. So this is going to be a super interesting conversation, I hope. And, we'll kick it off here. And, the chart is up here for those of you that are interested in seeing how we read this and, where we're bringing the reference. astrological references from in an actual chart. And so if you'll notice, I drew green lines around Neptune, which is this guy here. I'll get a little basic if Miriam doesn't mind. She can handle the higher level stuff. But for those of you that haven't seen a chart, and when she mentioned Neptune, this little guy is Neptune, and she was talking about the opposition that could actually have kicked off the sensitivity of and psychic hits that the folks in those that have those gifts are actually experiencing. So it's not an accident, universally, I guess it's a heads up, right? It's probably a heads up. So, huh?
But I think for those who don't know what they're picking up on, that could actually be like a collective confusion, or a collective either fuzziness, or because that Neptune happens to be in Pisces in the third house, a collective putting their heads in the sand. So for those who for those who have ears, let them hear.
Right, and eyes, let them see.
Yeah.
I mean, and yeah, to bring up, I mean, not to to bring up the exact thing you don't want to hear tonight either, but you know how it is, like you never quite forget it. What is interesting is that the people who can actually make sense of this are not the people who are necessarily, I think, are not the usual suspects. That right. This is going to be this very strong energy is that you have to go outside. You have to go outside of your conventional means to understand kind of what's happening. And because one thing with Pluto is that Pluto is very covert. It's something that kind of comes creeping on the horizon. It's like a volcano. Like, it's always there. Lava's always there. It's always eventually coming up. Then one day there's like a sudden explosion, but it was never not known. And I think for people who are sensitive to tremors, they will know when volcanoes are going to erupt. And people who are not listening are just going to be like, oh my God, that Pompeii actually exploded. What happened? You know?
Exactly. So,
so this is your warning, guys.
Yeah, this is a warning. So that's a really interesting point that relates to your experience, Tracy. Not that you don't know that anything that comes through your antenna is not by accident. But here in this chart, I'll just go back and reference the chart before we start. I want to try and be specific. So we've had this Pluto transiting in Capricorn since 2008, and Capricorn is the sign that is ruled by Saturn, and Saturn, in the chart of the United States, which, by the way, this is the chart of the day the United States was founded, and that's how we look at it. Yeah.
Can I just intercede for a moment for layman's terms, because I love how intelligent you two ladies are, but for those of you who are like me and really don't understand astrology, what she's looking at is the birth chart of the United States.
Exactly. Yes. The natal chart of the United States. Yep. Thanks, Tracy. And so what we're looking at,
So specifically for July 4th, 1776 in Philadelphia, when we, not we, but the founding fathers decided to declare our independence. I wasn't there. I'm actually not that old.
Were you there? As Robert Downey Jr. would say. No.
In your last life. In your last life.
So what we're going to be looking at tonight, we're just going to pick out a couple of things and talk about it, because like I said earlier, this thing has so many legs and the story is going to continue to unfold. And so we're going to start tonight and talk about some interesting things that have happened and where we might see some of these things going. So the Pluto return in Capricorn has been occurring since 2008, and I circled the Capricorn sign. Pluto is right here, right now, and it moved to, this is the birth, this is the inside is the natal, so that's the placement, and then the outside is the transit. So when we say that there's a return, in astrology, it means that the transiting planet has come around to the original place that it was or is in the natal chart. So it's made an entire transit around the chart. So on February 2nd, it actually became conjunct 27 degrees. Now, I talked earlier with Miriam about why are some people saying it's February 20th, and she explained to me that's because the actual minutes, 27 degrees, and X minutes will be exact on the 20th of February. But we talked about how this has come into Capricorn in 2008, and it will continue through 2026. And so this Capricorn transit in the second house, which in astrology represents our resources, money, value, food, supplies, in the government, it's government structures. Capricorn can be government structures, corporate structures, financial structures, anything that represents our social structures. And Pluto, will change that and has been changing that. And so we've seen some of those changes. So I wanted to give them a little bit of a background there, like on the basics, Miriam, and, we can start, chiming in on that. We know that we've seen changes in the financial structures. We have seen drastic and significant changes in how we operate under the corporate structures. We've seen Pluto also, sort of moves things around underneath and brings them out to the surface. And we've seen, things happen even like in the pharmaceutical industries, and we've just seen things crumble. And so that's kind of what Pluto does. So, we want to talk about that first. So, Miriam, if she could tell me what, she has so many things that she can say that sound so much more sophisticated than me, but, I figure I'll do the basics, and then, Tracy can say, well, gee, this is what I'm hearing from this, or however that comes out.
Okay, so Capricorn on the second house as the house of values, of possessions, is the things it broadly represents in like one person in an actual individual's chart, the things that you actually have that are within your control, like your actual possessions, your money, your talents, your skills, these things that you have that you can turn around and make into something. And Capricorn is the sign of administration, of figuring out how something is useful and putting it into play. So looking at a country's chart, you would say that the collective value or the collective sense of values and resources is how these things are useful, can be used to broker power, to generate money, or to create a lasting institution. And if you do look at America, one thing we do value is our institutions, for better or for worse. And we do look at our resources as things that do they have a usefulness? Are we able to turn them into money? Or to turn them into power, not just, for power's sake, kind of like in a Scorpio way, a way that makes us some sort of superlative. And one of the things we do value in this country is our idea that we are number one, even when we're not number one, even when we're demonstrably not number one. But another thing too with the second house is it's with Capricorn is that we value our ability to lead, to govern, and to take control of things. But Pluto comes and it destroys stuff, but it will change things in such a way that it can't go back to what it was. It's also the planet of evolution for that reason. So wherever it goes, wherever it transits through a house, whatever aspect of life that's in, it will change it completely, and you can't make it different. It just has to evolve or it dies. And here, the planet of evolution happens to be in the second house. And one thing, the United States, that we have vast resources, not just tangible resources, but we've always had other resources that make us a superlative, that make us a power, military power, but also, you know, the way that we kind of we put out our arts, like Hollywood, the way that we generally put out our culture, the fact that we you know, one way we can look at this is that manifest destiny, is that this idea that we must get bigger and bigger and bigger, and that we must grow. So here we are again, revisiting this sense of this little fledgling nation that was, you know, founded on this value of having its own power. Now what do we do? You know, 280 something years later. And I feel like I may be going on a tangent.
That's okay. No, this is good, and a good explanation. And you know,
so you put me on track, okay? So,
well,
yeah.
well, no, the explanation and the background and the history is really important of how this works. And so when we think about what this transit represents and what's gone on, like I was saying before, people like Tracy are feeling things coming. You know, we've seen slowdowns in the supply chain, and then we've seen a lot happen in the last few years. And so I know that, you know, intuitively, Tracy has mentioned to me things that she sees, or like, oh, we need to prepare for this, or I see in Tracy, like, does anything about this type of energy resonate with what has been coming to you and what you've been feeling?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I do believe that right now things are actually already happened. Like, I think there are things that have already happened that we haven't been privy to, that will be, there will be a light shined on it, and it will come to the surface and will become public knowledge. I think the monetary system is already shifting into a new system. I know people in the financial industry that's already getting emails and notices and stuff about changes that are being implemented, things to prepare for. Of course, they're not supposed to talk about it, so we don't mention any names around here. But I also feel, and so in my last channeled message that I did for I think it was the full moon in Cancer, was that the one that I did the most recent? Because I didn't do this last one. I did a channeled message about a purging and detox, not just in our own personal bodies, but also in the collective. And so it's like anything that Spirit was telling me, anything that's toxic, anything that's tainted or I want to say sick. So I just speak whatever I hear in my head, but it's being healed. It's being purged. It's going to come, like you said, like these eruptions coming to the surface. And it's not just in the planet and the United States. It's actually in the collective. It's something that's happening not just here. So I don't know if it's actually Uranus that's doing it. It's not just here, but it's all the way around the world. There's a revolution of information that has been held, I feel, captive, and it's begging to be talked about and to be exposed and to come to the surface. And so, not being an astrologer, I'm not sure how that plays into the planetary alignments, but I have been getting a lot of information about, you know, anything that seeks, so anything, what's that saying? Love, I can't remember. It's something about anything that's not love. God, I can't remember now. It was channeled to me and I wrote it down. But anything that's not love is in. So, you know, to get a little esoteric on you, we're going into the fourth and fifth dimension, which is an octave. Everything is vibration, sound, energy. And so when we had, and maybe Miriam, because remember you and I talked about this and we didn't understand it, Julian, something about the convergence, harmonic convergence. Are you familiar with that, Miriam?
Mhm.
Oh,
No?
the planetary alignment that occurred many, many years ago, where there were several planets aligned, and harmonically there were
Eight,
predictions that
8 of the
8 planets.
10
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, I
lined up
remember
at
that. Yeah.
back at 0.0. So I don't know this, Miriam. You can check my work if you want. This is something I received, like a radio, through channeling. But they even, I mean, when they give it to me, I write it, and sometimes I have to go and check spelling and stuff. But they told me a harmonic convergence had happened, and at that time, it was like everything reset, like a computer going back to the original factory settings, like everything going back to 0 point energy again. And from there, that's where we were expanding out into its. So if you think of timelines being like a lasagna, and energy and frequency, we're going through and into a new vibratory field, which they call the fourth dimension or fourth octave. And then, so we're in third density, third dimension, third octave, and we are ascending as a whole planet into the fourth dimension, fourth density, fourth octave. And that's the bridge. So if you think of, if you know anything about sacred geometry, you've got the Vesica Pisces, which is like the master charge, two circles overlapping with the little sliver in the middle. So I channeled that was actually the fourth dimension is like the bridge between the third density and the fifth density. And so in this time, all of the planets are assisting us to evolve out of third density into fourth density and eventually into fifth density, which is prophesied, I mean, on cave walls and biblical texts and old texts that have been unearthed that, you know, nobody knew about. They talked about the Great Awakening, you know, the golden age, the age of
Do you,
the rapture.
and I remember talking to you about that. Miriam, do you know anything about that planetary alignment in history? I didn't
So we're talking
know
about
anything about that.
that was in Capricorn, right? Was
I
that?
I don't know.
Because I'm trying to think like which one. What year was that?
I
Well,
don't
they
know, but I
closed
did look
up
it up. I
for-
think it was a long time ago. But, you know, Tracy, you brought up something that was really interesting about coming to the surface. And Miriam, you know, when you were talking about things coming out, and Pluto will actually do that too. So, Tracy, when you said that, I was like, well, what could we talk about that? I mean, we've seen things already happen, but in this transit, what could be coming, you know, like in our society, the way that we see it beyond what we're already experiencing.
And Tracy did hit on that too, because essentially this Pluto return started a few years before. And Pluto it's not like sudden and I didn't know about that like Uranus. Like it's something that's hidden and then comes to the surface. So let's say, you know, like there's an alien invasion and they're going to take over, God willing. It's not a surprise. Somebody in power already knew about it,
Right.
and they've been dealing with it, and now we all get to find out. And you know, it's been a long time coming. Because if you remember, we are now, you know, 2 years ago there was a planetary alignment. There was Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto, and there was during a time in 2022 where a lot of people erroneously thought this was going to be an amazing year for everybody. And it was going to be an amazing year if you were already a billionaire. But it was going to be a pretty bad year for anyone who's already going to be struggling, because you had Saturn there, which withholds, you had Jupiter there, which just increases the issue, and Pluto, which widens the gulfs of power, the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah.
And so all this stuff this has been stuff that we've been experiencing for a few years. And I think even after, you know, even to at least 2028, when Pluto enters like early Aquarius, like all this stuff is still going to be a thing. And, you know, Pluto will go retrograde at some point. So we get to do this all over again. But all the stuff that's coming up, these things, I don't think that anybody could be, there really is no, plausible deniability for anybody. Like, we all kind of know what is happening and what's coming to the circus. Like, the surface, both of them. Yeah. And,
But I
we're all
think that
clowns in that circus. So,
I think that Pluto could I'm hoping, or I'm excited to see what actually reveals itself beyond what already has, to those of us, so that we can make decisions and decide things. And what fascinates me about the astrology here, and I know Mercury will move past, but right now for this return, Mercury is sitting there and has been with Pluto. And so to me, in a chart like this, it does represent, thoughts and perceptions and communication, but also the people. What is it, the people that are underneath the Plutonian, things that are underneath that are going to reveal themselves with that coming together? Or is that Pluto bringing into the people that are dealing with these resource issues and financial, those of us that have to work with this, right, in our daily lives, is this going to, as that transits over Pluto, is that going to bring things up even more for us to actually see, and understand in our minds? That those are things that I wonder with this.
especially
So, Lee, as you're talking, I'm hearing clairaudiently, and they're showing me a vision of like Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz, where so all of these shortages perceived, I want to say deceived, but perceived shortages. It's like I'm seeing a vision of somebody taking the curtain and pulling it back, and what we thought was this big boogeyman is actually a little old man behind the curtain, and he's hoarding all the goods. And I think that the planets are going to help us to pull that curtain back and finally reveal what has been kept from us. Because I personally have channeled that there's a lot of medical technology and, cures, actual cures for things that have been suppressed and held back for years. And what's happening is these younger kids are coming in that are light workers, and they're the next wave of geniuses that are going to start having these downloads of reproducing what was squandered and hidden. It's going to be all over the place. They're not going to be able to contain it anymore.
I agree with
And
it.
so
Interesting. I do. And Miriam, do you think, I want to just, before we move on to the next area of life here, I want to see what you have to say. And then Tracy, based on the concept, we can take it from there. But about the fact that this is actually opposing, look at my drawing, is terrible. If you saw how I was having to draw this, you'd be laughing over here. But so we're talking about this transit in the Pluto and how it could be changing, our structures, like Miriam said, there's the government's involved, and, corporate and finance. But it is an opposition to what we call in astrology the eighth house, which is things that are undercover, right? Things that are that we can't see, that are hidden. It also represents our collective fear here. But that opposition is interesting to me in terms of how that may have already played out and what could be coming with that. And Miriam, what do you think for in the astrology for that? Yeah.
With Pluto in the second house, I mean, and it can be also your intangible values, like how we perceive ourselves. Like, I mean, part of it is that I think with Pluto's, like, we do perceive ourselves as this sort of superlative for no reason other than we kind of say we are. There was a point where there was some value behind that, but with the Emperor having no clothes, with that Mercury retrograde in the 8th house natally, which you can see it's actually right next to the vertex, which is a mathematical point in the chart that indicates very fateful meetings of a kind of karmic kind. There is going to be this this testing, or this critical mass of what we actually think, Mercury and retrograde, what we actually think without saying it, in the 8th house, which is ruled by here in Cancer, which is about, home, family, and protection. And what I think, especially like when it comes to a very mundane thing, is that we're a nation that is built on debt, and the 8th house is debt. And it's, we started that way, we are that way, not just down, our nation itself is in debt, but everybody who lives in this country is in debt. And so many young people are bogged down by enormous amounts of debt that I think one of the things that we're going to be discussing, of course, is, psychologically, what does that actually mean? And what is the actual inherent value of all of this, of everything that we owe? And I think, with the 8th house it broadly represents, sex, childbirth, taxes, legacies, and things that get destroyed and changed completely. And Pluto returning certainly makes us have to look back on those sort of those Plutonian and Pluto, it's root word of plutocracy, our idea of power, but also, our idea of what we owe people, or what we actually do in order to become part of something collectively bigger than ourselves. And I think one of the things that we're going to find, especially with young people, is they're going to find that, a lot of our rhetoric is really just hot air. There's a lot of stuff that it's just like the American dream is to a certain extent, or to a larger extent, just,
a nightmare.
It's a crock of shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
like you don't have it. And, you can't, you're sorry that your rent is 75% of your salary. And if you want to go to college, you need to sell your newborn. Also, pay for the Social Security and Medicare that you might not be able to get when you're older.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm wondering now with that, especially because Mercury's there in that, in that transit, we're thinking about this. We're not just feeling it. We're not just getting angry. Mercury is young people. Mercury represents the plebeians, the common people. We may be looking at another people-led revolution. If you think about what is crypto was a people-led revolution. What is social media? What is even trends, things like that. And personally, and I've been saying this for a long time, I'm really hoping that this is going to be an outright protest against student loans.
And that could be one thing. And, interestingly enough, this 8th house is all of the things that you mentioned that represent it. Tracy, you mentioned how the young people might be viewing this. It's a Cancer ruled, it's Cancer influenced in that house. So it has to be affecting our families and our homes as well. Mm-hmm. And that could be a complete turning upside down. And we've talked about, and even Tracy, I think last week, how people, the Mercury, right, or the way we're perceiving things and how this might change, that people in the United States, and Miriam, you mentioned the Social Security and how people will retire and live, that people are leaving this country. And that might be something that happens as a result of this, just so that they can, and that could be another piece of how our society and our structures change. That's another thing that could happen there.
Well, I feel like there's going to be a revolution in any area where we feel oppression. I'm seeing the letter that Martin Luther back in the not Martin Luther Jr. or King.
Martin Luther King,
the actual Martin Luther.
The Martin Luther, that fought the Catholic religion and split off there's a name for it, but I can't get it to come to mind. Like the Nicene Creed or something like that they put.
I know what that is. And it's Martin Luther's I forgot what it's called, but he nailed it onto the church.
Yes.
Is it the 95 Thesis? Is that what it was?
I think something
I'm
like
obviously
that.
I'm obviously Googling this.
Well, they,
We can cheat. It's okay.
well, I don't know that it has anything to, like I said, guys, I'd like to really do astrology with you, but I don't know astrology. I just can tell you what I'm getting intuitively. I feel like, I keep seeing the movie Ants, where there was a couple of big wig ants that was running the whole ant, collective, and bullies. They were bullies, and they were, greedy and controlling. And then the ants, realized that one of them couldn't make a change, two of them couldn't make a change, but you get to that 100th monkey where in consciousness there's a concept called the 100th monkey. It's where you get enough people who participate and change collective consciousness. It's literally a shift in collective consciousness that happens like a hive in the whole collective. And so this is what I feel coming. I feel not just here, I'm talking globally. I feel like the more there's pressure in these areas of construct where they've outstepped their boundaries, where they are going beyond service to the greater good and more at service to self, I think that you're going to see that a lot of these transits, not just this one, but I think all of them, we've had some big transits that haven't happened, conversations in the sky that haven't happened in thousands of years, hundreds of years. And they're all supporting this energy of freedom, is what I'm hearing, freedom. And so I do look for changes in our collective consciousness around wanting to be liberated. And you look at 1776, what were they fighting for?
Liberation, exactly. And it's like, it's interesting that you say that, because Mary and I were talking about that, and it's funny because the Pluto has returned, and here we are right back where we were, right?
Yep.
Possibly on the cusp or on the edge of actually fighting for that again. I want to see before, because I think that's a good segue into how this, could be affecting us socially, and internationally with our relationships. But before we do, well, I should have gotten rid of that. Before we do that, can everybody check in their chats and see if anybody has questions for Miriam or myself or for Tracy that we can answer up to this point? I don't have any questions in my chat. I do have Rashawn in the chat, in my chat, Rashawn Gilmer. She's my friend. I want to just shout her out. She's my friend for over 20 years, and she has like an awesome story. And so thanks for being here and supporting. We have Yasir. Hey, Yasir, thanks for being here. And he's overseas, Yasir. So, he's got in the Middle East, and so I believe so. That's where he's at, if he wants to shout out exactly where he is. But thanks for being here. If you guys have questions, Miriam and Tracy, do you have anybody in your chats that are asking questions for any of us?
Somebody asked me
Not
their page.
Not so far. They're quiet. I mean, everybody introduced themselves, said hi. Does anybody in my chat room have any questions or concerns that you would like to ask? And maybe we can look in the chart and see if there's, any relevance to it.
Nothing. I just want to make sure we get interaction here.
Yeah.
I have like probably four plus people in my chat. My Rebel Talk Radio is in my chat. And, if we don't have any questions before we move on, I just want to say thank you for helping with the live stream and getting us up technically. Like, thank you so much, very much for that. And yeah, you can go out and check out his channel if you're interested, Rebel Talk Radio. So nobody has questions. Did somebody have one, Miriam?
No, I mean, granted, I don't think there's actually somebody spammed my comments. So
I've got that. I've got that too. You know what's interesting is Yeah, Dustin
Yeah.
blocked a few for me. But you know what's interesting about this broadcasting software? It's like somewhere there's some radar. It's funny where I don't know if it's a result of that or not. It doesn't matter. But yeah, we can ignore those guys. We're
No.
looking for like legitimate people. We don't need to share the stage with people that are just start your own channels.
It's
So
like
does
it's,
anybody in TR's Tarot Talk have any questions or concerns that you would like? So Emily says she's interested, but she's just kind of here to listen into what we might bring up.
Okay.
so one of the things I think that we, of course, did mention before is the idea of freedom. When you look at the Capricorn, like Cancer, the polarity. Capricorn is fine with going at things alone if it has a mission and it has something it ultimately wants to do. And Cancer is very parochial. It's very tribal. And when you have, we have this energy between, are we the rugged individualist who climbs the goat who climbs the mountain alone and just I don't care because I'm, and is kind of embodying that sort of Teddy Roosevelt energy? Or how am I dating myself? No way, I'm not 200 years old. But and then that whole idea who belongs, because one thing that we are seeing lately is this, with unfortunately with the rise of a lot of with I think with fascism and with a lot of these militant groups is this concept of, oh, not everybody gets to belong to this great American collective, and there's people who have very different ideas about who gets to decide whether or not they're American. And then, but when you think about it, they were fighting for freedom, but one thing that America was at the time was one of the biggest the biggest market for was slaves. And we built this country on the genocide of Native Americans. Yes. So we have that sort of Pluto
karma.
That we have. Oh, that is definitely karmic.
Definitely.
And Pluto karma is not like Saturn karma. Saturn karma is the way you learn the lesson. Pluto karma is actually an eye for an eye.
Yeah.
It's you will pay for what you did. Like it's a very different, it's almost not even like karma. It is actually universal justice. And it's almost like it's like Kali destroying the demons. It's in right. She will soak up there will not be any blood that touches the ground. And
well, and don't you think that if you were the archetype or collective archetype of the Kali, that this would be the perfect time to do that? To here's your birthday, you've had 200 plus years or however many years, and now it's time for you to start giving back to those that you used in order to get where you got.
And also, you guys didn't actually slay your demons. You just gave them different names. You wrote movies about slaying them, and you went to other countries and called them the demons. And now I'm going to come, and this is going to get ugly.
Could get really interesting, don't you think? You know what I was curious about, and Miriam, you might know this because I don't. I know a little bit, but that. Not very, obviously the United States has never had a Pluto return. We will never have one as a human being, obviously. But what is the history on, if you know a couple of points, history on countries that have had a Pluto return and what kinds of things happen? We talked a little bit about that one time when we were in class. And even though it may not replicate, our country is founded on something different than others, but it is very interesting that a few of those examples that you threw out were pretty huge. They were big, significant changes.
And we were talking about, I think it was more like dynasties and things, because it's really hard to tell. One of the weird things about America is that America actually is a country with a birth date. And most countries, even if, let's say, France had a revolution. France had a pretty big revolution, but America had one. But when Pluto comes to you, bad things happen. I think, did we look at where Pluto was at the bombing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima? Was that us?
No, but
Look,
we should do that for the next.
because
We should look at some of the history for our next live.
right,
That's interesting. Some of the history. I
because
wasn't prepared. I thought of it, and I was like, ah, I didn't have time to look, but I think it would
because
be cool. Yeah.
I didn't look at a lot of other countries, and one of the things that is unique about the United States is that this country literally has a birthday. It's not an expanding, contracting, get rid of a monarchy and then reinvent yourself. This is actually this is actually an experiment. This was a place where a bunch of Europeans walked in, closed their eyes, and go, "Oh, it's empty. New country." And I don't know if we're ever going to have anything like this, but when Pluto comes home to roost in other places, when Pluto, and the thing is too, is that any other country that was having something major happen, like France during this time, having this, would have this revolution. It's like things do change. There, people rise up, volcanoes
Hmm.
explode, um, monarchies fall, emperors fall. Um,
I,
there's like, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think we're witnessing the fall of a monarchy right now in the whole Prince Charles and
Yeah.
Prince
we're
Andrew.
seeing,
Yeah.
yeah, Andrew.
Something
I'm
came
sorry,
out from
Andrew.
behind the curtain there, didn't it? Which
Yes, it
involves the
did.
United States in a sense. Yeah.
Well, and another one is the papacy. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's being revealed in the Catholic Church behind the catacombs they've got underneath
Yeah.
the Vatican and all the ancient knowledge that they've hidden. There's so much that's coming to the surface, and it is that curtain being drawn back, and it is dynasties falling, literal and perceived.
Mhm.
And
And
that is
so,
very Plutonian and very eighth house,
And
right?
that's
Yeah.
one of the nice things I think with because now Sagittarius, which is the on the ascendant of the United States, is philosophy, religion, and freedom to explore those things. And it's not technically a tenet of our country because but we definitely have this idea of freedom of religion and freedom of speech. Yes, we do have a First Amendment. Congress shall pass no law, abridging those freedoms. Um, I actually have a feeling that most Americans don't actually know what freedom of speech and what freedom of religion actually means, but we love our religious institutions. I mean, Pluto, our house of values, Capricorn is institutions and churches and those things. And the fact that, and the eighth house and the whole idea of which is your not your contracts, but it's where you surrender, where you sublimate yourself into something larger, is Cancer here. We love joining these kinds of families, these kinds of groups of people, and the United States has a long weird history with religion.
Hmm.
And for many of us, because I also grew up in a very religious home that I have
me too.
made great strides to leave and to actively um, not only just disenfranchise myself from, but to help others disenfranchise themselves from, is that in America alone, we are seeing something that we've never seen before. And we're seeing collective apathy towards these institutions. We're seeing non-religiousness. Like something like 29% of Americans are not religious. And if that was actually a religion, it would be the biggest religion in America.
Right.
And we're seeing, of course, the rise of the normalcy of the kind of work that we're doing now. Like,
Yes.
if this was 50 years
Yes.
ago, I'd be kissing my law license goodbye.
Oh my
Exactly.
God,
Hopefully, I'm
I'd
not
be
doing that.
burned at
Or
the
it's,
Yes.
stake.
I was going to say
So,
burned at the stake, kissing you,
Yes.
and I was talking to you about this
Put into a
before.
sideboard.
Exactly. And I did a video on that a few days ago, and where this is not considered the norm, but that in requests for readings, I'm getting a lot of younger people who are interested in matching their career with and understanding their connection to spirituality, not wanting to follow the family or ancestral, the dogmatic beliefs that they might have grown up in. And so So that is changing. I mean, the younger generation is going to change that. And I think that would be a huge Plutonian change for
And
this country and what it was founded on. That's a really good point, Miriam.
and when you
Really
think
good.
about it, like that whole, in the Mercury in the eighth house thing is, kind of when Mercury retrograde is not necessarily thinking backwards, it's not necessarily dyslexia, it's thinking but not necessarily communicating. It's kind of that over analysis and not actually. And I think that there is this sense of, when it comes out in the collective, like, we happen to be kind of insular thinking. We have told ourselves this whole narrative about our freedom. We've told ourselves some big whoppers. We've told ourselves that the Puritans came here for religious freedom. The reason they came here is that England was merciful and didn't kill them because they were terrorists. And I mean, they were terrorists. They really thought they had the right to treat other people any way they wanted, because they actually thought that they had this religious right to be jerks. I don't think anyone wanted them to survive, but yet here we are now.
Yeah.
And
Look at Australia. It's the same thing over
Yeah.
there. I mean, Australia was built on all of the prisoners and the bad guys nobody wanted to deal with, the murderers, rapists, pillagers. They all got shipped over to Australia, and they evolved. I mean, people evolve, and so
but
evolving. I think we're seeing a mass evolution,
Yeah.
which
I do
will
too.
create
I do too.
revolution.
So
and with that
let's,
Neptune, sorry, go ahead. I was gonna say that Neptune opposition in the ninth house, because that ninth house, that's the house of philosophy and religion, and Neptune can kind of, with it conjunct that Lilith there, which that can be like a huge philosophical free for all. And
Yeah,
then Neptune in the
could
third
be.
house is going, we're going to put this to the test. We are literally
Yeah.
going to, my religious freedom to believe anything I want. Some of you guys, I mean, if anyone's story can be crazy, so why can't I think what I want?
exactly. And the generation that's coming up,
Mhm.
that has a Neptune in Aquarius, that's exactly how they think, which is,
Mhm.
I'm going to think outside the box. I'm going to connect to my spirituality differently than has been done in the past. And you see all of that. You see,
Mhm.
I see that, in my
There's
grandchildren, Yeah.
there's churches now centered around marijuana. It's like they're the church. I don't know what they call themselves, but I mean, they're forming these religious groups built on their own personal idea of what religion is. Like, we've got the quirky ones. You know how you see people out in public that like to, dress flamboyant. They're the unicorns, the ones that stand out, the ones that really dare to fly in the face of propriety or perceived norms, right? And they used to be frowned on. They were really kind of subdued. And now in this new energy, we are actually not just embracing them, we are building them up and encouraging them and learning from them. And everybody seems to be tired of painting in the lines, and they're just drawing new lines. They're like, screw this.
Yeah.
I want to do what I want to do. And the funny thing is, my spirit guides show it to me kind of like a mechanic, right? It's like we got the tools over here. It's really screwing things down, trying to control the rattle, trying to control the noise and the rattle. But they can't. It's just it's like something needs fixed. And so if your car's making a loud bonking noise and you avoid it and you just kind of tighten down with the tools that you have to try to quiet it and avoid it, eventually it's going to be heard. It's going to just stop working. And I think that's what we're seeing, is things that are stop working.
Yeah,
because
they have to be changed, right? Because
change is the only constant.
right.
And Julian, you and I have talked about this. How, I mean, And that is one thing with, I think, that Pluto there in that institution making the opposition to the vertex to Mercury retrograde in the eighth house, is that a lot of young people, like, there just is no reward for following the Abrahamic religions. There's no reward, especially for women, especially for anybody who's not like basically a straight white middle class male. There is no reward, because you will always have to stop being somebody, and then you could still go to hell anyway, and then your life will be miserable. But there's no social consequence, because I can stop going to church. I don't live in my hometown. I'll still have a job. I will still be able to do everything and do what I want. But these institutions, I can throw my time, I can throw my money, I can throw away part of my soul, and I'll get nothing in the end, because ultimately one of the things we're seeing is that the only people who win are the people who are already in power. They're the people who, who created the game.
Right.
Well,
here.
And even Jesus couldn't preach in his hometown. He was known as a carpenter, or the son of a carpenter.
And there is an irony there that you have this, that socialist hippie who was killed by the powers to be, because he was a rabble rouser, who's now somehow morphed into at least in this country, a pro-gun, mega capitalist, which he clearly wasn't. And it's just sort of like, how do you not just throw up your hands and go, okay, enough?
Yeah.
I'm better off figuring this out by myself. At least especially, like astrology just doesn't care about what color you are, or where you were, where you were born geographically, your socioeconomic class, what you look like, your IQ. It's just, nature doesn't care about any of those things. Yeah. And, I just celebrated like midwinter, and I was, the sun did not ask me to tithe or to show up at church. Like, I had no, I didn't have to watch any preacher on television. Like, it was just a very wonderful, normal experience, and just very I think, life affirming. And I think, what's going to happen is, how does Joel Osteen disappear? Stop giving him money. Stop buying his stuff. I mean,
which could happen. I mean, things are moving away from the corporate structures, even in terms of commerce, how we buy things, even people that are thinking about bringing back, farming in some sense for organic foods. I mean, all of these things could be changing and going back to something different. But I think the point that one or both of you touched on here, which was the reactions of the people and how they will speak out and change things, kind of might segue us into moving into our next area that we were going to talk about tonight, which is, look at my drawing is terrible, but you get the idea, which is the seventh house, which is our society, or our relationships to even other entities, other countries, but also our relationships in and amongst one another, and even to our own government. And so that Lilith here, which, for those of you who don't know what Lilith is our primal, in astrology, is our primal female even, deep sexual, sort of energy. But it's pretty much, the archetype of who will not be oppressed, who will, and in Gemini, will speak out. Gemini is the mind in Mercury. And so we've got that Lilith there that is in that seventh house, conjunct Mars. And that's a combo, right? That's quite the combo, and having this Uranus right here, which we know is the planet of sudden change, and, can come out of nowhere, and, it can do some good things. It can move us into something that is, more, forward thinking, but it can also just cause a surprise, right? And sitting right there on the descendant, what is that? Could be that, what we knew and thought before could be blowing up, or could it be relationships that we have with other countries? Or could this Lilith just be us speaking out? Mars in Gemini is, when I think of Mars in Gemini, I think of people, lots of people moving around and, not sitting still and not, not taking things lying down or dispersing, right? Dispersing and just, so that could mean a lot of things. What do we think about that? The reactions or what could happen here?
And, the seventh house is also like justice. It's also, what is equality. And I think like Mars in Gemini, I also think is a big talker and a person who likes to get involved in. Mars in Gemini can be a busybody. And it can be somebody who gets and getting involved in other people's justice is a big, or sense of fairness is kind of what our trademark is.
Right.
We don't, our military spends more time, defending the border or going overseas and fighting than really our own. I mean, when was the last time that we really had to protect our own? Pearl Harbor, but then we went overseas.
Exactly. And I should say the seventh house
wait.
is also open enemies. Sorry, I want to throw that in there for people that don't know. I forgot to say, seventh house can represent our open enemies. So with Lilith there. Yeah. Okay. So having known that, go ahead, Miriam.
And Lilith, of course, is like the mythology is that she was the first wife of Adam, and she refused to. She wanted to be on top during sex, and Adam's like, no. And so then he did what Dude did, and he appealed to God, and God was like, yeah, you have to. She's like, no. He's like, okay, well, you have to leave, the Garden of Eden. She's like, fine. Oh, and you have to be the mother of demons, whatever. And then 100 of them will die every day, whatever. And then she went and did that, and now she is she now represents that kind of that the female energy that men are terrified of, that the one that they feel threatens patriarchy. So. Right. We
are right now in the rise of the divine feminine.
We are. And that's, I think, one of the reasons especially that we're seeing kind of like this backlash from men who don't, who first of all, they didn't benefit from patriarchy. So now they're looking the wrong way to it's clearly it's the other oppressed people. And we're seeing with, it's like, I didn't get what I want from patriarchy. I guess that's women's fault. And unfortunately, we are gonna see that with that Mars, that kind of that jingoistic sort of thing going on. But that will be other countries, that will be women, and it will be people who are actively against our sense of being the world police. And one thing, I mean, it's. Well, if we were going to have a draft, then we were going to have a lot of draft dodging. If that happened, we're going to
definitely with Mars and Gemini, that would definitely draft dodging, right?
Oh yeah. And there's going to be, I think definitely could be other countries, but I think our own collective sense of, oh my God, stop, is going to, we're just not going to do it, is going to be the thing. It's going to be just people going, you do you, I do me. Have fun, bye,
Yeah.
Right.
But definitely.
Not just that, but Gemini, doesn't that kind of, or not Gemini, Aquarius kind of, we're in the age of Aquarius, which rules, like you said, the collective community coming together. Also, it is electronics and communication.
Technology, for sure.
Technology. Yeah. And so the thing is, in the bigger scope of things, their greed, when I say they, I'm just leaving it open for you guys' interpretation, but greed has put technology in very young people's hands and taught them autonomy that they never had at that age in previous ages. And those children are not going to give up easily their sense of freedom. And I don't know about you guys, but my boys were all huge gamers. They've never been to a war. They've never touched, real guns, but boy, are they sharp. They know how to strategize from those games. And so, it's like, it's not going to be easy to have a draft or to construct a war that the younger kids don't see the sense in.
Exactly. And that is the upcoming generation. And there could
Right.
be a revolution. Even think about that, a revolution, a cyber revolution, like fighting back in that
They
way.
already are. They
Right.
already are. We
I
have the anons out there already. These they call them the autists, the
mhm.
anons, brilliant, savant, computer hackers. And who do you think's revealing a lot of the stuff that's been hidden underneath?
Well,
They get into all of the government stuff and other government stuff.
that's actually interesting, Tracy, what you say, because, and look at this here, like, because I was thinking that I was gonna pop and say, well, this Lilith and Gemini could also be a little double talking, manipulative, and not quite straightforward, right? Depends on the expression. If we're talking about open enemies, right? There could be some shenanigans and actually BS going on, like plain out and out deceit and lying, right? But also to what you were just saying, that would fit there too with that kind of expression. Don't you think? Don't you think, Miriam? Like
I
that.
do.
If we're talking about open enemies, right?
Yeah, and especially too, I think with the ninth house having a natal Lilith in Virgo conjunct Neptune can be somebody who lies supposedly for everybody else's own good. And
Mm,
welcome CIA, welcome,
Right.
government
yeah.
secrets. I mean, and
Three-letter agency.
maybe to some extent it could be to your own good. I don't, let's say if there was, I just kind of hope for an alien invasion, but I'm just going to use it as an example. If let's say that was imminent and we were trying to thwart that, is it really the best idea for everyone in America to have to worry about that on top of everything else they're worrying about? Okay, probably not. But you can take that and you can run wild with it, and you really can. This is a place where it's the ninth house. It's not necessarily the 10th. It isn't necessarily that knowledge is power. But if you need to keep up a narrative, a philosophy, and America's philosophy is really the thing that we trade in the most now. You may have to create that narrative, create some sort of intrigue, some sort of I want to say intrigue. I want to say some sort of subterfuge. And then part of the problem is you got Neptune transiting that third house there, and it's in Pisces, and it's very comfortable there. And Pisces supposedly is like more confusing and diffuse, but for everything it's sort of the end of the zodiac. Everything's the same, and you put the planet of altruism there. You start having people are like, well, why this information and not that information, or
hmm
why
They
can't we
start
talk
poking
about
the bear, or people intuitively start getting
Mhm.
things, And with this here, I
And they
also
start
think,
coming from the dark and being like,
yeah,
okay, well, oh, here it is. Let's just see what people think about it.
yeah.
Cool.
And I mean,
I
like
can hide.
this energy, this Gemini energy, like the shapeshifter. Listen, I'm a Gemini. I know I can, move my way in and out, but that could be an enemy or something going on that is undercover right in front of our own eyes. That is so light and even friendly that we don't even see it until it's there.
Well,
Oops, where did we lose you? Did we lose Miriam?
Oh,
Oh,
wait,
there
my
she is.
bad.
Okay, we got you. We got you. We got you.
so
And yeah.
when you think about it, okay, now, this might be conspiracy theory or whatever, but there are those, I'm not going to say I prescribe to this, but there are those who believe that our own government has been infiltrated and we're not even being ruled right now by the United States, but we have actually merged with
Oh no.
China. And I mean, I'm not saying that's true, but you're
Yeah.
talking about open, when you're having the dialogue about enemies kind of in the hen house, you know what I mean? And we may have that. We don't know. We don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
There's so much speculation around our voting system and whether it was honest or dishonest, whether it's all been called into question. and they're bringing people in through the borders, dumping them off, and there's all kinds of stuff going on. It's being filmed too, and that's another thing that's really cool, because these kind of conspiracy theorists before, that's all they were just conspiracy. But now with technology, they're actually being proven. They're like, here, I've got the proof. I mean, I was standing there when the plane came in and 350 immigrants came up.
And I'm
got in
not,
limousines.
yeah, I'm not a conspiracy theorist either. And Miriam will tell you, when I look at these things, I think, oh, well, what could happen is that the younger generation actually comes in and speaks up. They take action. We move things to a higher level of consciousness and more of a spiritual connection. And that can also be representative of, what's going to happen. Are we going to fall prey to that, or are we going to rise above it? Is there going to be a healing around that, or, with all of this Piscean energy? So that's part of what these conversations for me is about, is like looking at both sides. Like, again, this and that can be true, but what do we see? And, we see a couple of different, and it's all dependent, like anything else, on how we choose to use what's at our disposal, the energies that's available to us. So, count on me to throw the upside in there, right?
And I was from the downside.
I know.
So that's my job.
Yeah.
I mean, that Neptune opposition, especially because it's on the third and ninth house axis, which is communication and philosophy, mundane thought, higher thought. And then Mercury is involved in this Pluto return. It's, retrograde in the eighth house. It's a very suspicious mind. And Americans don't trust each other or anybody else. It could be the conspiracy theories are just another Neptunian veil that somebody is...
Another ruse. Yeah.
Another ruse. And that, it's not, so it's, you may never know just how far the rabbit hole goes or where it ultimately lands.
Yeah.
Because you can fake videos, you can fake stuff, you can take things out of context. I mean, it's not as if somebody can have a video of a bunch of what they say immigrants are coming off the plane, but those could literally just be people going to Orlando.
Yeah.
To go to Disneyland and coming back. Like, there's a point now where, who do you trust? Eighth house is about surrender. It's also about trust. And we are now with this Pluto opposition to our ultimate, to our power, or our place in the second house. We don't trust. And with young people, back when they could be recruited for World War II, they were actually being told they were doing something important. Try that again with Vietnam. They came out and they found, oh wait, these guys don't want us here. They want us out. They want to kill us. That trust in the government was destroyed pretty much forever with the boomers. And then with that Lilith passing that Mars, it's never gonna happen again. And I do wonder, the Neptune opposing, because like I said, people who are in tune with that energy, they're going to be okay with that. But for the rest of us, it's going to be a lot of collective confusion.
I agree. And I read somewhere that it was predicted that this presidential time frame, this was an astrology thing, astrologer that predicted this, that during this time frame, this president would possibly not succeed because of all of the things going on in the government, the way that our governmental agencies were handled, and the things that are going to start coming up, and that there would be no way that that he would be able to pull the country through that or save his reputation, which is interesting, right? Reputation there. But that a lot of things are during this time period will come out that have been going on, and again, I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist, but I do think that, some of these shows that we watch, and I don't know if you like Scandal and, some of these things like CIA shows, who knows if they're really all that far off from, threads or seeds of things that go on behind the veil that we don't know about. But if we're living in the day-to-day in our lives, what do? Like, we don't know. We just have to prepare ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't
Well,
know.
you have to expect the best and prepare for the worst,
I guess.
And
basically, you know.
I think,
Well, and I'm sorry, Miriam. Go
no,
ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, you know, the thing with what I feel is going on right now is that, I mean, yeah, you're right with Neptune, you know, things can be deceived, you know, but you go to Yahoo Financial and start looking at who owns all of the big corporations that own everything, and there's three at the top, and they own every single one of the news medias that are the conventional news media. I mean, of course, we've got underground news and stuff like that. But when people like Time Warner, who are owned by, you know, BlackRock and these big corporates, it's I mean, I'm not even talking about proof. I'm just talking about speculation. If you know that Hollywood is actors and who owns all the news media is the same people that own Hollywood, you know, you start thinking, well, how much credence can you put into what the narrative is? And then you do get people kind of searching, seeking, looking for truth, you know, and then you say, you don't know how deep that rabbit hole goes. Well, I think it goes straight into the pits of hell sometimes, and depends on how far you want to go down it. But I believe intuitively that the whole pandemic was a creator of change. Look at the name itself, okay? Corona, crown.
Oh, we're not allowed to say that.
Oh, sorry.
Picked off.
Careful.
Ooh, anyhow, the name itself has significance and meaning, and
Yeah.
people, the people that name things, they use esoteric knowledge to help their purpose.
Well, there are asteroids that are named after some of these things. I don't know how much thought has gone into it. Again, you know, that's why we have these conversations to get all of our opinions. I'm not really sure. I'm of the belief that I don't really think the government is that organized or any corporate structure is that organized, but there most people that are in them, but that there's somebody there that's smart enough to take advantage of the overall ignorance in our structures, and that's probably the scariest. But you know, but that could be a Lilith and Gemini. I don't know.
I mean, I think one thing though is that, like, one of the problems with America, of course, I mean, and is that it's too big. It's too big geographically. We don't have the infrastructure to really be a collective. I mean, we're still using an electoral college, and we don't need to, because we can count actual people's votes.
Right.
But the whole reason we had an electoral college was because we were geographically too big to govern, and I think that's part of that Pluto. It grows and grows and grows. It's like, you know, like you have it's like a souffle, and eventually it's going to collapse on itself. And you know, we don't even own a lot of our own natural resources. There's a lot of things that we simply don't have access to, that are either corporate owned or they're owned by some other entity that's not here. And I do think that one of the things we're going to see is that perhaps the way that we solve this problem of this Pluto inflation is to contract and to really divide ourselves along the geopolitical and the cultural lines that we've already existed in this country. Mm-hmm. And I said I wasn't going to go talk down this line to myself, but that might be what we end up doing.
Could be.
Is deciding, you know, that we can't figure out what we think, we can't figure out what the truth is, we can't agree on how to share anything, so maybe we need to break up into the 7 little countries we actually are.
And that's all possible too, you know.
I think I see it happening. Don't you see it happening? I mean, look at Florida, and then look at Texas, and you know,
California.
Look at these where they can't agree with the collective, and so they are creating their own narrative, and basically saying, we're not going to participate with you. I mean, I live in Pennsylvania, which is a commonwealth. It's not even considered, you know, they govern themselves too.
Well, and maybe as we move into, you know, changing the landscape of how we sustain ourselves, right? Maybe it looks like, we talked about this a little bit, maybe it looks a little more communal, and where, you know, these communities become self-sufficient. And I think that's the thing. Like if it's you, me, you know, the three of us, and we're talking to our neighbors and we really don't know what the fuck is going on with all this shit, we're saying, okay, well, we don't know, what do we do? Well, maybe we're never going to know. We can't tap into, unless we can find some of those, you know, Aquarian, Neptunian kids that can, you know, hack this stuff. I mean, kidding, nobody, whoever's listening, but it's like, what do we do as just everyday people? It's like, when we don't have control of what might happen in our resources and in our financial systems and in our government, I see, like, even here in Arizona, and I know it kind of looks like it's sexy, really, and it's just popular. But is it really? Like, is it by design? Because I see these communities that are being built. Like, we have one here in East Phoenix on the outskirts, and it's called Agritopia, where they built this master planned community where they're completely self-sufficient and people are growing things, and they have their own little coffee shops where they're owned by the people that live there, you know, and they grow this and they grow that, and things are very different, and they become somewhat interdependent. And, you know, maybe that's what some of us, you know, I see, like, that's kind of to lend what you're saying, breaking off in different groups and sort of trying to figure out how to be self-sustaining, or actually leaving the freaking country and creating communal places there, which we're seeing, right, all over Costa Rica and Belize and the Dominican Republic. But I agree, it's like one way or the other. And who was it that said, like, dispersing, everybody disperses and says, you know, I'm out. Like, I don't like this. Like, while everything crumbles down, right? While Pluto is crumbling down all of our historical structure.
You know, and you think, like, I mean, actually, I did get a question, like, should we fear the end of be fearing the end of our nation, given that karmic retribution? But part of it is yes, but I think that, you know, with the end of the American narrative, like, I mean, because, like, if you, like, I remember when I went to go live overseas, people were like, why would you want to do that? I'm like, why wouldn't I want to try living in another country for a while? Like, but the blah, blah, blah. It's like, I lived in a country that actually, where there was a lot of stuff that actually was better. But I think that we're seeing the end of that bedtime story that we're telling ourselves, that you know, now that we're not, you know, this isn't the best country, that you can go broke if you get cancer, and, you know, or that you may never be able to buy a house. Like, expatriating doesn't seem like a death sentence the way that we kind of acted like it used to be. Like, it's kind of like, yeah, I could totally go live in another country for a while. Like, it's actually going to be okay. I can leave the United States. I'm not going to die. You know, I'll be just fine. In fact, I might actually get better healthcare and a better quality of life and more vacation days, and I can actually go on maternity leave. I think that, you know, that is going to be a part of it, is that we may see, like, that with that Plutonian energy, we might see a great exile of people like, you know,
and we can afford to keep the lights on. Things are more simple, you know, even, you know, the prestigious categories that we put each other in, which I said this before. I think, however this could happen when Pluto finishes its transit here in our, you know, the structural place in our chart, that the playing fields will be leveled. And it might be that they're leveled somewhat because big chunks of it have gone its own way. You know, I don't know.
I mean, if you think about it too, you know, if you leave the country, you know, and they can't chase you for your school loans. So that's going to be something I do think, and I know I've come back to that. That might be a big driver, and they can't, you know, your bankruptcy because you got cancer is not going to follow you, and it might actually become not just like a, you know, a reset, but it might actually become a necessity for some people in order to have a life, you know, because.
Well,
the way that credit is in the United States, that it's almost like a god. The only way to outrun it is to outrun, your credit history.
So I just want to chime in here as I believe I'm a light worker. I believe that, I know this is where people would probably put me in a nut house, but I do believe that I am a starseed, and I came here to help literally save the collective from the, we went through the fall of Rome. We went through the fall of Atlantis. We went through the fall of Lemuria. And this is a prophesied time. And I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about downloaded knowledge from higher source, as far as I'm concerned. And so I believe that a lot of these problems that are popping up, and my spirit guides always show me visions, and sometimes they're silly, but I'm seeing, that whack-a-mole.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how the things pop up and you whack it down again. It's like we've been collectively doing that for a long time. And the stuff that we've been hammering down, it can't be kept down anymore. And they're all going to come up all at once. And you only have one hammer, and there's no way you're going to be able to keep it. So things like cancer are curable and have been curable for a while. And that has been suppressed. I believe that wholeheartedly. Hopefully they won't drop the feed because of that. But
probably not that one, maybe. That's already been through court.
well, and just so you know, the newest illness that's going around that we can't mention has a purchased and paid for patent by the United States 5 years before it became a thing. It's owned, it's patented. 5 years before anybody ever saw it on the scene.
I didn't know that.
And you can research that. That's researchable. That's in the patent office.
I think we can all agree that there are things going on that we don't know about with almost every single topic. I think that much we can agree. And that's why we want to come together and talk about it, because it's interesting to hear everybody's different feelings. Does anybody in anyone's chats have any questions here? I mean, we are at like an hour and a half. Do you guys want to keep going, or final thoughts or whatever? Yeah. What's your question?
I have one as well. But...
Oh,
okay. Well, 1 and 2, throw them out there.
Okay. All right, Tracy, you go.
Okay. So my friend Emily wants to know, how long does the transit last? Like, what is the duration of these changes?
Pluto transits usually through a sign, and correct me if I'm wrong, Miriam, and that's give or take retrogrades, which, I'm not looking at an ephemeris, but about 12 to 14 years. Am I hitting it right off the top of my head?
Yeah.
Is a transit. But this, the other interesting thing about this, so that would be how long it'd be transiting through Capricorn. So we're looking at that through a few more years in Capricorn, but because we're talking about the second house of resources and all of those things that Miriam detailed out so nicely, we also have part of this hitting that same house after it comes out of Capricorn in Aquarius. And I will get to that in another series or another talk, but I think that's going to be interesting. Hopefully that answered the question. Do you have anything to add to that astrologically, Miriam?
I think, because Pluto's still going to be in some sort of wide conjunction, I would say that at least this kind of acute return, because Pluto will go retrograde at that time, I'm going to say we're probably going to feel till about the middle of 2028. It's going to come around and it's going to come back. In fact, it's going to go retrograde again in 2028. We might actually just get kind of maybe still feeling a slight aftershock, but this isn't going to be something that's done this year. We're going to be feeling this for a while, but we started feeling this when Pluto was at about 20 degrees, and that was, what was that, like 2018
or 19?
About 2018. So
I feel like October of this year. and I don't know why, and there may have been something I looked at, but I feel like October of this year we might start to see some significant changes, at least in our financial or resource. Like, I don't know. I mean, that's just, when I look at it, it might start there. But like you said before, the transits of Pluto are slow and steady, and then permanent when they finish. But
And I
who
mean,
knows? Yeah.
in October, Saturn in Aquarius is going to be square to Uranus in
That's
Taurus, and
it. Yes.
that's going to be in our
Something. Boom. Yeah.
our second, fifth houses. So in self-expression and in what we value, like we're going to have that thing come around again, and eventually Saturn. This is, I think, for a later discussion. In 2020, about 2023 is going to be make a conjunction to our natal moon. That's our consciousness, our collective unconscious, and the actual public. And Saturn is limiting, and wherever Saturn touches it, if you are not going in the direction that you should be going into, it will destroy what it touches, and it will force you to do it right. So,
And that's what we're doing in our businesses. And, I think what Tracy's helping people that are resonating with the spiritual and psychic teachings that she does. And you and I are trying to help people astrologically understand at least their own journey and how to reach for things. I think the more we do that, the more, that's the only chance we have of like working our way through this, and hopefully the community and society will come together, and we can, I don't know, that's the $1,000,000 question, right? Are we going to all implode because we're not powerful enough? I have always been of the belief, and I've even said this, in my career, in healthcare, working with providers and having them say, oh, we are controlled by these corporations. It's like really not so much, because there's a piece of, and it works the same way with the American people. And you mentioned this with the money and the debt, Miriam. It's like there is an element, and in this case of, if the people aren't participating, the plan stops, like, right?
and
So
we
the
attack
power is in the people. Yeah.
And that the big dropout, because I mentioned before with school loans, if everyone stops paying them, then what are they going to do? I mean, you can only garnish people's wages so much, and if everyone has bad credit, then nobody has bad credit. So what do you do with a collective group of young people that goes, no, I'm just not going to do it. This was a bad deal. Good luck. And you get millions of people who aren't going to do it, and then they don't give the money back to the federal government. So now what happens? Or you just have people that just say, I'm just not going to do, or I'm not going to buy or do the thing, and they just sort of quietly say, yeah, I'm finished. Then what do? How do you coerce people to just do something they just refuse to do? I mean, there could be this new level of civil disobedience to when people, I think, really kind of realize that, money is an illusion, debt's an illusion. People who've had forbearances because of the thing that's been going on, they're still making money. It's going back into the economy. It's just not going into certain pockets.
Right.
It's because the money is, it's always still there. And we think, okay, well, if we're going to have a collective group of people who are going to, tune in and drop out once again, how do you make them do something? Because what if they just go, okay, and now I'm not going to work. So have fun. Try to collect $0 from me.
And so, speaking from experience, I was guided spiritually by my guides to move completely out of the system. I mean, I'm completely out of the system. I'm self-sufficient. I not that I don't pay taxes, but I'm self-employed, and I don't have a boss, and nobody tells me what time I show up or what I've got to wear or how I've got to do my work. And the one thing that I've noticed, at least in my profession, is there are so many people whose spiritual gifts, like the gift of communication, the gift of, it doesn't have to be esoteric gifts, but I've learned how to monetize anything, literally. Like, I mean, if you have a creative mind, you can, I saw a young man on YouTube who likes to dress up like a unicorn and do funny stuff. And he has like 300,000 subscribers, and they demonetized him. I don't know why, to be honest, but they demonetized him. And you like the word demon in the front of that? Demonetized. Anyhow, but he gets, and he'll open on his channel hundreds of gifts that he gets in the mail from his viewers, where they send him gift certificates for food, for money, for he's completely self-provided, because he brings joy into people's lives. He's doing something that flies in the face of, he's just being creative.
And actually, I think you're right. And people are going to start, I think what people want to see and how they want to live is going to start to change away from our traditional structures. And because of things like that.
It is kind of normalized, because like somebody like me would not, I mean, I'm kind of a late bloomer to putting my face out there, but it's almost normal for people to have a TikTok or to have an Instagram where there's this other life that they have and this other persona. I mean, it's a, like there's like a lot of other people who have like side hustles, but also side vocations, and that it's almost like, okay, so you have a thing that you do, and then there's the other thing. And I think that may be, and part of it, and the fact that people can barter, like right now you can only be taxed on cryptocurrency if you get capital gains, but not if you get paid in it or you're gifted it. And or if if you happen to barter for services, there's a whole lot of other, the second, eighth house economics, there's a whole lot of other ways to get what you need, right, than straight employment with an employer. And even that's changing, because a lot of people are working from home. A lot of people are independent contractors. A lot of people.
And I think we could see these are all great examples, lines of questioning, lines of thought, things that we're actually starting to see seeds that could take off in a lot of different directions, or grow. Of examples and thoughts of what could happen here, how the landscape could be changed in our society.
Can we bring it back to Miriam? You had a viewer that had a question.
Yes.
Should we fear the end of our nation given the karmic retribution? My answer would be probably no, not yet. I have a feeling we're going to be quite tenacious. I don't think we're going to see a complete end of the United States. I think if it came to if it was a Pluto ending, it would just be sort of like a a disappearing, a sort of crumble. But I don't think we're going to end up I don't really think we're going to end up with an all-out civil war like we had, in the 1860s. Just because
we need it. I don't think we'll need it. I think we'll push back to the point where they'll, in order to keep what little bit of control they have, they're going to start pulling back and giving concession.
I mean, we're in a cold civil war. I mean, that in a cultural one, that's just a given. I think just looking at this time around, we don't have a polarized economy the way they did in the Civil War, where it was actually possible. And we don't have a Mason-Dixon line culturally. We have it culturally, but we don't have it geographically. Like I live in Illinois, I live in Chicago. Chicago's a blue island surrounded by red stuff. That's going to be, if that was going to be a civil war, we're going to have to dig a moat. I mean,
Yeah.
but that's because that's essentially what's going to happen. I I don't, but I mean, the only thing I do wonder if maybe what happens is that the nations that are the easiest to invade are the ones that are highly disorganized, where the people are starving, and they don't have the will to fight. And you know, that could be an issue if we don't solve this Pluto problem in the second house with our resources, with not having people that are too poor and too sick and don't have the will. Because a lot of young people now, they're actually okay with socialism, which would have been unheard of in the 50s and 60s. McCarthy would have dragged them in front of Congress. Like, if we, I don't think we're going to get invaded, but we may actually just see this kind of slow sort of decline. But the one thing is, with this Pluto energy, the volcano, the lava is always there. The plate tectonics, that's always there. The mountain is always there. When we see a volcano exploding, we think that's what's happening at that moment. But we've been experiencing this for years.
Yeah.
And this is our new normal. And these things that are happening, the fact that, fascism is alive and well in America, is part of our new normal. We're not, we would have been shocked a long time ago, but the fact that, there's swearing and there's boobs on TV all the time, that's part of our new normal, and I'm okay with it. But the fact that you can, there's a lot of this Pluto energy. The fact that you've got people working 3 or 4 jobs so they can they can pay the bills. That's our new normal now. This stuff has always been happening. Yeah. So even if our country was to get destroyed, it would just be completely normal for us. It would be something that it would be so normal at that time. I don't think that anyone would be like, oh my God, we have to do something. Mm-hmm. It would just be like Florida goes away, so is California.
I don't know. I don't know that I agree with that, but I mean, maybe. I kind of feel like we're already initiating change. Those changes are already here. They're just they're not in your face yet. A lot of it's not even being talked about. But I do believe that I got to tread carefully here. So, when I think of spiritual terms, we talk about those who are unawakened versus those who are going through the Great Awakening. And for me, that is pulling the curtain back and seeing the little old man behind the curtain that's, really nothing to be afraid of, right? Because small versus large, right? What makes them large is the money. And the money, I do believe we will see the collapse of their money, not ours. I believe that
I agree, but I don't think that means we'll have an invasion. Is that what your question, person, or the end of?
I don't think we're gonna have an invasion. I use it as kind of an example. I think that whatever happens, it's going to be normal. I mean, Jeff Bezos is going to lose his money because there won't be enough people to buy cheap, shit from China anymore. So then Amazon loses its stock, and that's how it collapses. Like a souffle can only get.
That's what you mean, right, Tracy? Is like seeing things crumble like that. Yeah.
That's yes. So I agree with you there that you will see, but I don't agree with the fact that people are going to be numb and asleep and not notice.
I don't think it's not that they're going to not notice. I just think you're going to be used to it. But I also think that we're going to have a value change to a point where you may not be as interested in preserving the republic as you are with preserving your own family.
Right.
That you may, it's like, oh no. So, senators, have to get part-time jobs now because we can't afford to pay them. Big deal. I can't afford bread. It's going to be, and we've seen this as part of the last few years as most of us were at home. certain things just don't matter as much as they used to now that we kind of know what it's like to be able to be cozy or to really focus on what matters. And I think like I think that I don't think people are going to be, just kind of be bored with it. I just don't think the institutions that we think are important, that we or thought were important, that we're going to be as concerned with saving them.
Right.
Like,
No, I agree with that 100%. I see that falling. I see it's funny how my guides show me a lot of stuff in computer terms, and I am so technologically challenged. It isn't even funny. But they show it to me like say, we've been running Windows 7, right? Everybody's used to Windows 7. They've got all their favorite little tabs and they know how to operate it. They're comfortable with it. And then, in comes this Windows 10 and everybody's like, oh, it's the next innovative thing. It's great, until you have to start using it and you're confused and everything, it gets messed up again. But it's temporary, because pretty soon people start getting it. They start understanding it. They start mastering it. And then it is evolving. It is evolution. And I believe what's happening right now is we're going through this deconstruction, like a defrag, in order to implement a new, higher, more advanced collective future. I mean, they've got quantum computers that can actually compute across timelines, see the future, predict the future, be in the future.
Well,
literally.
we do have generations coming up, as I've looked at, how those generational planets are hitting the newer generations, that actually I think will do some pretty amazing things. It's like, where no man has gone before, possibly. It's just whether or not they can actually push their way through what we have now.
Well, it has to be done in integrity, because if it's not done in integrity, it will fall, just like the fall of Lemuria. I mean, and Atlantis, they were huge technological advanced civilization. And, there's karma, right? We got to look at the karma of everything. If we can't operate in integrity and use that technology and that knowledge in an integral way, then it's not going to benefit us. And eventually we will become encapsulated in it, because it's bigger than we are. And so I feel like what part of my job is, as a light worker, is I'm helping people to heal ancestral patterns, traditions that no longer serve the collective consciousness for where we're going. And so, they talk about the ascension. It's like a hot air balloon going up. And so trauma, being abused as a child, or being, belittled or thumbed under, or corporal punishment, all of these things created trauma, not just in the secular person, but in the collective. And so people like me are helping people to heal that, to do shadow work, and to go within and to actually reprogram themselves like a computer, so that they're not operating on or they're no longer reactive and triggered through their trauma, but they're proactive, co-creating in a healthy, non-karmic way. They're releasing karma, healing it, and then, we're going to parent differently. We're going to, and it's not going to be the...
I think that that's what we're all doing in our own way. You're doing that. You're absolutely perfect and right, Tracy. And, Miriam does her astro coaching, which is, diving into it from an astrological standpoint, helping them, folks, unpack all of that. That's what I'm doing as well. So
it's why you're doing it.
Right.
It's not just what you're doing.
It's why. Exactly. Because we all resonate with that.
Miriam already talked about, in her childhood, the religious thing and the belief systems that she not only wanted to expand and grow out of, but she wants to initiate change in other people to liberate them from this corporal punishment, this parent figure, this old man sitting on a cloud somewhere that gets to determine whether or not you're worthy, right?
Because then there's the issue is like what, so you can liberate the people from the dictator, but then what do you do with these people who have never had an opportunity to know what liberty is, or what democracy is, or what self-determination is? What do you do? And some of this stuff is karmic. Like a lot of people who go, you know, when you go from religious home to religious home, you've usually incarnated in these circles forever. And it's like, what do I do in this life? But also, how do I avoid going back there? Because you usually have to leave that karmic circle forever and find a new one. And it's, you know, and I do think with that Pluto in the second house, that's one of the things that we're going to see is the fall of the institution. And we're going to move into maybe this more Cancerian idea of like, you know, this is actually about my soul, what's, you know, and not about the collective power. I'm actually important, and I'm going to outlive all of these institutions that kind of rise and fall.
And that's where the power is in the people. And I love that. I'm glad that you brought that up, Miriam. That's and Tracy, I think this is a good place. I don't know if you guys, we should maybe try and sunset out of this, but you know, we've talked a lot. It has been. I have 4 people in my chat. I don't have anybody that's answering questions, but here's the thing.
I have one.
We broke. Okay. Oh, you do? You have another one?
No, I don't think anyone's asking a question. I do have somebody who's
one person
with me,
no, so. But we talked about the practicality of this and what could happen from a structural and a governmental standpoint. We talked about how that might affect people. We talked about what might give us or empower all of us to actually move beyond that, you know, by seeking and finding their spirituality with somebody like Tracy, you know, astro coaching with Miriam, you know, I'm helping with astrology readings, like all hitting different categories. And what I think is cool is none of us are living our lives floating around on a cloud. We're all educated and we live in a practical world, and we know that there's a possibility and a way to bridge the gap between different ways of looking at how we learn about ourselves and move through these situations, and trying to keep ourselves aware of what the hell's going on and how to bring those things together. And so I think these
as above, so below.
Yeah, exactly. And so I love these conversations, and like, you guys are brilliant, both of you. And this is the coolest thing ever. I'm excited to do more and break it is. It's the coolest thing ever. So it is.
Can we take a second? Because I've got somebody in my chat room that wants to know what our placements are. So I'm a Cancer sun.
Okay. Sun, moon, rising.
Virgo moon.
Yeah.
Virgo moon, Cancer rising, Virgo Venus.
Go, Miriam. Go.
Okay. I'm a Sagittarius sun and an Aries moon with a Pisces rising, and actually have a Venus in Capricorn. And my Mars and my North Node are conjunct in Virgo. So, and that Mercury, that's retrograde conjunct Uranus in the 8th house Scorpio. But you would have been able to figure that out pretty easily.
So I'm a Mercury retrograde. I was born during retrograde too. My Chiron's retrograde too.
Mm-hmm. And what sign is your Mercury?
She's backwards.
Leo.
Leo. Okay. And
and I am a Gemini sun, a Gemini rising, a Leo moon, a Gemini Venus, Jupiter, North Node, and Mercury. So
my North Node is Taurus, and my South Node is Scorpio.
So she's going to have her nodal return. Yeah,
having nodal return right now.
Oh my God! Well, ugh.
But you know what's cool about what we just talked about? We all three have a fair amount of mercurial influence in our charts. I think you guys definitely have more water than I do, except for that my placements are in the 12th house, which, you know, helps me a little bit. But that was a cool question. Who asked that question?
Well, let me see if I can go back.
Dustin. Okay. Who asked?
So it just says MR.
Okay.
And they bopped in and bopped out. I don't see them now.
Okay.
So that was kind of cool.
They're gonna
Isn't that
blackmail
weird?
us with
That
that.
was
for
cool.
sure.
So
Bopped in and
anyway,
asked that and
yeah,
popped
it was
out.
awesome.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was a cool question. Thank you for asking. We're gonna do this again. Popping in and out, or we had we had planned to have Whitney here from Accurate AF, and she had some family issues going on, so she couldn't be here. So, we'll pick that up sometime in the future. But these are ongoing transits. The landscape of our consciousness and our reality is going to continue to change, and we are interested in this, and we want to talk about it. I think if we all can be found, if you're interested in working with any of us individually, I can be, you can find me on my YouTube at Jovi Star right here, Soul Astrology. I have a Facebook page, and my information is in the description box of my videos. I'd love to work with you. You can find Tracy at Go Tracy. Where can you be found?
You can find me at T.RSTARROT ALK 1111. So it's TR's Tarot Talk 1111. And if you go to my YouTube channel, which is TR's Tarot Talk 1111, underneath any one of my videos is all my contact information, including my Patreon. And I really don't do much work on any other platform. So it's all I can do to keep up with the two I do use.
And Miriam, where can we find Miriam, the brilliant Miriam, the astrologer who I adore? Yes.
Okay. Well, you can probably just ask Julene to tell you. So you can contact me through my business page, Fugitive Umbrellas Astrology, but I blog at fugitiveumbrellas.com. Those are actually the words like you see here. That's where I usually spend a lot of time writing about astrology, but you can contact me. You can, request a reading. You can comment about all the various typos and run-on sentences that I make, but that's where you usually find most of my work.
And it's brilliant work. And I will say I've worked obviously with both of them. Miriam's my teacher. If anybody wants to learn astrology on a very get a hold of Miriam. If you're interested in working on your soul's journey and elevating your consciousness and getting in touch with your spiritual and your intuitive and psychic side, get a hold of Tracy. And of course, I'd love to read for any of you, your birth charts or relationship issues or anything that I'm able to do. But I love this collaboration, and I really love you guys. And
Julene is an ace problem solver and very good at honing in on very, very specific events and very specific issues in a chart to a very eerie degree, in a way that has surprised me when we've been working together.
Well, and the one thing I say a lot about Julene that she'll blush and kind of dodge is that she attributes a lot of her skills to her Gemini mind, but she is extremely intuitive. A lot of what she does with the chart, she channels, and I think that she would probably, kind of duck and dodge that one. But the truth is, she's highly intuitive, and I think that the more she learns with astrology, the more she channels around it. And I like to see that she's really, I think, found her calling.
Yeah, Julie, she didn't tell you guys, but she actually is a 12th house person. So very, very strongly psychic, very strongly intuitive, does kind of this is her tool of divination.
Yeah.
And learned very, very quickly, I have to say. My belief was that she wasn't learning, she was actually remembering from a previous
Me too. I told her that. Hands down, I told her that.
So, okay, enough of that. Yeah. Can I just go back to saying how wonderful you guys are? No, thank you very, very much. I feel really grateful. Listen, my entire life has changed the last 4 or 5 years, and I have new friends, and I have a newfound passions and things that are actually touching my heart. And so, listen, I couldn't be more grateful for you and the other folks that I know. And so, I just the support that I get, and I hope that I can give that all back to you. But thank you, and let's do this again because this is
Okay.
freaking fun,
Let's do this,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I wish we would have been doing this back during like some of those biggies, like the Grand Conjunction, and we've gone through quite a
Oh,
few
there'll
of
be
those.
more, right? Miriam,
Yeah.
there's more
Oh,
big things coming up.
Oh,
oh my God.
there
Please,
are.
don't remind me. So in my 12th house, Julie, she
You
knows
do.
my
You have a moon in the 12th house, and I believe your moon, your sun, not your moon. Scratch that. You have a sun. Your sun is in the 12th house. Um, okay, she's a Cancer sun, Cancer rising. I think your moon's not there. Oh shoot. Now see, I'm gonna
It's
have to.
okay. It's okay. I was just
She
curious.
is
'cause you
a
were all
12th
talking-
houser, but
That's
she,
very
she
12th house, and Cancer's very psychic, and the moon, and your moon was in Virgo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
she
it's a very
is
very analytical moon. I actually know a few other psychics that they have Virgo moons because it's they take the impressions from the instinctual impressions from the universe and they put it into words very
Yes,
easily.
that's what I told you. You know what she has? Mercury and her sun in the 12th house. It just hit me.
It's
yeah.
definitely channeling and automatic writing and clairaudient.
Which is all great. Yeah, I hear. I mean,
Told you.
literally, it's like somebody right here in my ear talking to me. Like, you see these people on TV that's got the little earpiece in, and they're speaking what they're told to speak. That's me.
Yeah, that's it. It's Mercury. She's got the Mercury retrograde and the sun in Cancer in the 12th house. So yes, she's definitely a 12th houser and super. That's very intuitive. So you know what? My son, who came to, well, I know we need to hop off here. This is so much fun. We forget the time, but has come up with a really great idea for us to capitalize on. So we'll talk about, not capitalize, but actually provide, like have fun with online. That was the wrong word. But yeah.
You can't edit that out. That's live.
Oh, well, listen, I come from a business background, okay? Like I was in healthcare management and finance for years. So I use a lot of business words. But anyway, a fun thing that we can do with our community. So, just look for more of these transit conversations, definitely the Pluto return and things coming up, and then maybe other types of things that we can get together and have fun with and offer everybody. So anyway, I want to thank you all again. And if nobody else has questions, we could say goodnight if everybody wants to say goodnight. Are we good? And thank you, Rashawn.
Okay.
My
If
friend
you
Rashawn.
guys are up to it, maybe one of the next series or not series, but shows that we do, maybe we could touch on the nodal returns. The change of the
Yeah,
nodes.
sure.
He's talking about that, and
Because I could use a little advice.
That will affect this return, and we did talk about, so I think that can be in another live week, how that affects it for sure.
and when I think there's going to be a great square with the countries. With the country's nodes and these upcoming nodes that we had talked about before, which I think is going to be a very interesting time, where this is like a great existential crisis that I'm kind of looking forward to.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll put that on the agenda. We're gonna come up with a schedule and how we're gonna alternate and weave in and out of this, but it'll be a lot of fun. And thanks everybody that tuned in. My wonderful friend Rashawn, Rebel Talk Radio, whoever is in your chats, thank you so much. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna
Thank you
end
guys.
it now.
Thank you to all my people who have been watching. I've pretty much had 10 people in the room since we started, so
Nice.
I got. And the thing is, I don't know about you guys, but a lot of my people are all over the world.
Yeah.
And so I may only get 10 people that are on the same time zone that can watch, but I get a lot of people that watch the replays.
Replays, yeah.
And so, you know, it will get 300 or 400 views probably in the first,
Okay.
you know, night that it's up. So I hope everybody enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments section if you guys enjoyed this, if you'd like to do it again, what questions, maybe we could even
Yeah.
come up with some questions from your people, my people, Miriam's people,
Be
for
great.
the next show that we could address, you
Be
know.
great. That's a
Okay.
good idea too. Yeah.
And I'll reblog this because that's like where most of my traffic is, and we'll see,
Okay.
you know, if some people want anything. But don't come to me for psychic stuff because I only have the South Node in the 12th house, and I already was a psychic in a past life, and I'm not supposed to do it. So that was I want to throw my 2 cents in about that.
She was put in the corner. No, and me either. You know, I mean, I know that I have like good spidey sense, but I really do like to read the astrology, and I'm loving it and having fun. But yes, if you're doing like psychic medium stuff, and you know, then Chase is your girl, and our girl Whitney, who's not here. But yeah, the astrology really is for me. I love it. So, all right, guys. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks everybody that's listening. And hang on,
Thanks.
ladies. I'm going to end the stream, but don't go away, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, Miriam,
Sure.
you want to end your stream? Tracy, let me see if I can end yours, my dear. I'm
Okay,
ending
so
mine
I just
now.
end
Bye-bye.
live video. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I got Tracy's almost.